All right, Travis, how are we doing today?
I'm great, Christian. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for joining us in this podcast interview here. I'm very excited to have you on for a few different reasons, which we'll talk about. So I guess before we even get started, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do. You do a lot in the leadership space. You are a veteran, so thank you for your service. And you do a lot of focus with real estate as well. So I guess tell us a little bit about your background and what got you to where you are here today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, look, I'm born and raised in Richmond, Virginia, where I got started. Feeling this typical thing where I made too much money to go to college, but didn't. My parents didn't make enough money to send me to college or to pay for it, so I had to raise my right hand and join under that pretense. But it turned out to be the best decision of my life. I spent over 24 years in the Navy. Reached the rank of a command senior chief, where I was a senior enlisted leader for a ship. Then I retired, but I was already dabbling in real estate. And of course, I never thought when I was growing up, oh, I'm going to go be a real estate agent. I never thought that was going to be my future. But as it turns out, it's been extremely rewarding. So I retired from the Navy in 2016. I started just as a solo real estate agent, helping service members. But about 10 years ago, I had this idea of if you think about, there's all these different companies out there that specialize in serving veterans, right? You take Navy Federal Credit Union, which is the most sought after bank for veterans. And then you have USAA, which is the most sought after insurance company and bank for veterans. Veterans United Realty, number one VA lender in the country. But there's currently no national brand when it comes to the real estate space about serving military. So I've been on a mission to build this company, and over the last year, we've done just that. So we've launched our new company called Military Operated Real Estate, which is a national client-facing brand, kind of like if USAA and Zillow had a baby, right? And
Okay,
that's
love
really
that.
kind of our model and our concept, where we train our agents at a standard that's above the average real estate standard. So that way, our service members who trust in us know they're getting a service member who's walked a mile in their shoes, that they're military affiliated, they've been trained at a national level, and they have experience to back it up before they can actually serve our clients. So that's been a mission of mine. And then through this endeavor, I had the realization that statistically, only 12% of our service members, of the 20 million veterans and active duty service members, have ever used their VA home loan benefit, which
Hmm.
I'm like, that's a travesty. So I did some more research and I realized that about 80% of our veterans, not that they don't want to buy a home, it's just they're not financially stable to buy a home. And so instead of me focusing on just teaching them about the VA home loan, I realized that the real disease is financial literacy. And that's where I also got motivated to write my book, Military Money and More, which is there to help solve the financial literacy crisis we have amongst our military members. So that's my background on where I was and where I'm at today. And it's just been an exciting journey, Christian.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And coming from the military, I'm sure there's a lot of principles that you can bring into the financial space, right?
Mhm.
Whether it be real estate, just managing your finances, some kind of philosophy that carries over. So I guess tell us a little bit about how you bridge that gap between those two industries and those two sectors that are
Yeah,
so
well,
different than each other.
they certainly are. Like the military is an amazing organization. I would not be the man I am today if it wasn't for my experience in the military. And we do great things when it comes to taking care of our service members. But here's the reality. They kind of keep us locked in a bubble, right? And I will tell you, when I retired over 9 years ago, I realized that holy crap, I've been learning by drinking through a fire hose what they don't really have. So we're great war fighters in protecting our country, but teaching financial literacy is not one of the like core competencies you would learn in boot camp. So I've learned through my own experiences. I've made every financial decision or every financial mistake you could possibly make in life. I got racked up $40,000 with credit card debt. I bought the high interest cars. I was, always, leveling up my living based upon my promotions, and I was never focused on investing and building for my future. And now here it is. I'm in my 50s, and now I've been playing catch up. So I didn't really get the realization until I was halfway through my career in the military that I needed to focus on my future, right? I've had two kids I've been married for 28 years with my beautiful wife. And so through my own lessons of hard knocks is where I wrote the book and where I'm building our company, is because if it's happened to me, it's happened to many others. And that's really my motivating factor behind both the book and my new company.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I guess dive a little bit more into that, right? Like some lessons for high achievers, for people that are maybe coming out of the military, for people who just want to be more disciplined in different aspects of their life, whether finance or
Yeah.
not, right? Like what are some practical applications of some things that you were able to carry over?
Absolutely. So here's some first fundamentals, right? You don't know what to spend. Most people, I hate to say it, most people just kind of make a paycheck and they spend it. When the money runs out, they're just waiting for that next paycheck, right? That's the typical either living paycheck to paycheck or actually overextending and maybe running out. And that's where you have to lean on credit. All right. And if you probably know, rotational credit, like credit cards, can be a tool, but if misused, it can be an absolute detriment. And I learned that again. Racked up those $40,000 worth of credit card debt, and it was like I couldn't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. So here's some practical facts, right? So first off, building a budget. That's one of the foundational things. And it's really hard to be disciplined with it, but if you are, it can really change your life. Because how do you get out of debt? Well, you first need to know where you're spending your money. So the first practical application is you need to build two budgets. The first one is you have to build what you currently are spending, right? So be honest with yourself. If you're lying to yourself and you're not talking about those, spend the fact that you spend, $5 a day on a latte, well, then you're only lying to yourself. So when you do your first budget, like be very honest is everything you're currently spending. But then what you do is you build your survivability budget. This is the no crap. This is everything that you have to spend money on: housing, healthcare, and food. Netflix subscriptions, not a requirement, right? I hate to say it, even a cell phone is not near a requirement, although in today's world it kind of is a necessity, right? But focus on, and then when you build those two budgets, what it now allows you to do is prioritize, and you're going to be shocked at how many times you might accidentally hit a subscription. You're spending $2 a month on some app that you don't even realize you're doing. But when you build your budget, you're going to recognize those things and you're going to be able to turn those off. And then you can prioritize what you have to spend versus what you need to spend. Now, here's what I tell people the other practical application is, and this is the power of investing. Well, first you got to get out of debt, right? So before you get to invest, you got to get out of debt. So what's the best practice to get out of debt? Well, can you agree that you could easily drop 200 bucks in one night going out to dinner and maybe going out some drinks?
I've never done that before.
Right, exactly, right. You're
Yeah,
only lying to
definitely.
yourself. You say that because it's easy,
Yes.
right? You can easily blow 200 bucks a night. So here's
Yep.
what I tell anybody I'm talking to: sacrifice one night a month. I mean, Kristen, you think you could do that if you just say, tell yourself one night a month, I'm not going to go out, right?
Yes.
So now you save that $200 a month. Instead of going out, you save it. And now you take your credit card that you've already built up a massive debt. You take the lowest balance with the highest interest rate, and you take that minimum payment. Because a lot of people don't realize if you get a bill for your credit card and you're only paying what it says on the bill, you're only paying the minimum payment, which means
Sure.
you're only paying the interest, and you will never pay off that credit card because you're not paying off the principal. So what you
Hmm.
do is you take whatever, let's say it's $100 your minimum payment. Take that $200 that you're now saving, slap it on top of that $100. Now you're spending $300. Now it's in your budget, right? Because you've allocated that. And you're going to pay that every month until it's paid off. So it's a $500 credit card limit or balance. That's going to be paid off in 3 months. Now, where most people make the mistake is like, okay, that credit card's paid off. Let me go party. Well, no, you got to stay
Let's
disciplined.
go
So
do it again, right?
now you take that $300 and you stack it on top of the next highest balance credit card. And that's called the snowball effect. And you rinse and repeat until all your debt's paid off, right? And that's one way to get out of debt. Another one is, it's the one I had to use, is go get a consolidation loan from your bank, right? And that where you can take all your credit card debt, put it into one loan, get rid of all the other credit cards, and now you know that it may take you 5 years to pay it off, but you know there's light at the end of the tunnel that it will be paid off at the end of 5 years. Now,
Sure.
unfortunately, in that situation, sometimes when you're in that situation, they're not going to give you a loan on your own. That's where I'd actually go ask for my mom. So last time I ever
Hmm.
asked my mom for anything financially, she had to co-sign for me, and of course, now my mom's on the hook. It made sure I paid it off. And at the end of
Sure.
5 years, man, I was debt free, and I've never been in debt again. So that's just two very practical things that you can do to build a budget and get out of debt. And then lastly,
Okay.
I will say this: once you get out of debt, it's a mindset shift. Now, I want you to now start investing a percentage of your income into some kind of interest-bearing account, whether it's a TSP for the military, whether it's a Roth IRA, whether it's you're investing in the S&P 500, but just take a percentage of your income, not a flat amount, because if you get a raise, that investment's never going to go up. So you take a
Hmm.
percentage and you put that into some kind of investment vehicle. But here's the mindset shift. It's about paying yourself first. Most people think they have to pay their bills first and then they whatever's left they invest. I would argue that the investing is what makes you money. So make that a bill. Make your investment a bill and change that mindset. And then that way you're always going to be building wealth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then you're always kind of snowballing onto that wealth, right? The other way from the debt. So I guess now switching over a little bit to your business, right? More. I guess before we get there and talk about that specifically, how do you go from getting out of debt, obviously, then investing, but where does real estate actually come into play? Is it just, taking advantage of the VA, buying your first home, or is there more to it than just that?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so many strategies. I mean, look, a lot of people don't realize real estate is actually, people don't realize 83% of generational wealth or retirement wealth comes from real estate. And so, it's the number one wealth building strategy out there. And it's one of the safest ones, actually. But you got to know the system. And so I teach very fundamental stuff. There's a lot, I mean, there are so many high level investment strategies in real estate. I actually don't get into a lot of that in my book. And it's really not what we focus on more. We focus on the grassroots average service member on how to get them to build wealth so they're not struggling financially. And so some different strategies. The reason why more is that there is because there's so many benefits that are actually assist military members that the average real estate agent doesn't really don't really know about it. So it's kind of like being a doctor, right? Any doctor can prescribe you medication, but if you need heart surgery, are you going to hire a dermatologist to do that surgery?
No.
No. So if you're going to buy a home, why would you hire somebody to help represent you in probably the largest financial decision of your life if they don't know all the benefits that specifically work with you as a service member? Let me give you an example. Here in California, for example, if you purchase a home, a lot of people don't realize that number one, and this is nationally, if you have a disability rating from the military, you do not pay a VA funding fee, which saves you money in its own right. And also, in other states have much better benefits. You get $150,000 off your assessed value if you are 100% disabled. Okay. So,
Okay.
so there's a lot of little very unique things to it. The VA home loan, you need to know that it's one of the best benefits you get as a veteran. Zero down. Imagine like
Hmm.
no money down, right? Because the VA covers that for you. They put the down payment basically or insure the loan for you. Then on top of that, there's no private mortgage insurance, which saves you money there as well. And it's
Wow.
also because it's the most profitable loan product for lenders, it actually has the lowest interest rate because there's less risk for the lender because the government is backing the loan.
There
So
you
you
go.
actually get a better interest rate than if you were a civilian trying to get a conventional loan. So there's a lot of these benefits, but then there's even tax benefits. Did you know that if you are on active duty, because of the Service Member Civil Relief Act, that are you familiar with like if you buy a home, if you live in it for 2 of the last 5 years, you don't have to pay capital gains if it's your primary residence. Are you aware of that?
Yes. Yeah, but
Okay.
you can explain that to our audience.
All right, so anybody by government law, if you live in your home for at least 2 of the last 5 years, if you sell it within before that 5 year period, you can actually let's say you're going to make $200,000 in profit from selling your home. Well, you don't have to pay taxes on that. You get $250,000 per person. So if you're single with $250,000 exemption, if you're married, you get another $250,000. So it's a $500,000 exemption if you're married. Now, where it gets exciting. As an active duty service member, you get a 10-year extension on that. So imagine if you're an active duty service member and you buy a home at every duty station, you can basically buy a home at every duty station. And when you retire, all you can liquidate all your homes and not pay capital gains on any of them because you get a 13-year time frame to do that. And
Wow.
that's really powerful that people don't realize.
Okay. That's awesome. So, I mean that's all great information for anybody listening seriously because I agree with you, right? Real estate is the number one generator of wealth. I know there's technology now, that's kind of the new thing, but even that is still volatile.
Hmm.
Real estate, you could feel it, you could touch it, you could taste it depending on your taste, but
Well, the thing of it
it's
like this,
there.
it's the only investment. Can you touch and feel stocks and bonds?
No,
Can you use stocks and bonds?
not really. No.
Well, do you need a place to live?
Yes.
So with real estate, you invest in something that has the uptick to appreciate. Real estate on average appreciates 5 to 7% per year. But yes, you actually get to use it, meaning you get to live in it and use it for your day. It's a tangible asset you can touch and feel. But I do want to clarify the difference. If you are living in your home, it's still considered a liability, right? Because you're using it and it's not cash flowing. You're just hoping for the upside for equity, right? You're still paying the mortgage. But the minute you move out of it and you put somebody in, this is where I'm a terrible real estate professional, right? Because I always
Okay.
tell people, like, if you don't have to sell, why sell? Because
Yep.
let's say you're living in it at a duty station, and then you get orders to another duty station. Well, instead of selling it, keep it. And then
Hmm.
you put a renter in there. Once you put a renter in there, it now becomes an asset. And now it becomes mailbox money. And now I've heard people say, oh, well, I can't rent it for as much as my mortgage payment is. Who gives a crap? Because even if that mortgage, let's say your mortgage payment's $5,000 or $3,000 and you can only get rented out for say 2,800. Most people in the mindset go, oh my gosh, I'm losing $200 a month. I'm like, are you though? Because that
Hmm.
person is now paying your principal down, most of your principal down. They are paying all your taxes and insurance. And yeah, you might have to pay $200 a month towards your investment that's going to appreciate over time. And so
Sure.
again, most of this stuff is a mindset stuff that the average person just doesn't get. And I'm one of them. I spent my first 35 years not understanding that. So I've been playing like I said, learning by drinking through a fire hose over the last 15.
Yeah. I love that, and again, that's why I love real estate as well. So I got attracted to and I wanted to have this interview here, because all of that also depends on the fact that you never again take equity out of your home. You
Hmm.
don't use HELOCs. You don't refinance at a lower rate, right? There are so many cool different things when it comes to depreciation as well, like depending on your tax status, your tax professional. It's really really cool. So I guess with that, I go a little bit more into like the business side of things, right?
Hmm.
What does your business do, right? What's the business goals that you have? Who do you help? Obviously, the veterans, the real
Hmm.
estate agents, right? But what's the plan and what's the future look like for your company?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. You ever heard of a BHAG? I have a
I have
big
not.
BHAG stands for Big Hairy Audacious Goal. So my
Okay.
big hairy audacious goal is that more will be synonymous with USAA and Navy Federal in the next 3 to 5 years. What does that mean? It means that, as I said, real estate professionals, I hate to say it, we have a reputation second to only used car salesmen, right? And so my goal is to raise the bar. I would love to help everybody, but I'm really focused on helping the veteran, right? And so my goal with more is to raise the standard of the agents that are specializing in serving our veterans. And that's the reason why we require a military affiliation before you even walk in our front door, right? Because it's very simple. You don't know what it's like to serve unless you've served. They
Hmm.
also then once that's the prerequisite. Once they get in there, then we get to send them through a very robust 20-hour courseware where they learn how to be a successful agent and learn all the facets to provide the best level of service to the veteran. And it's very specialized. We even teach them to not just be real estate agents. We teach them to know all benefits around service members that can assist them. And I'll give you an example of why that's so important. About a year and a half ago, I sat down at a listing point with a client, and I asked them, just like I said earlier, why are you selling? If you don't, do you have to sell? They were like, well, our kid just got accepted to UC Berkeley, and it's a very expensive school, and we just can't afford to do it. So we need to sell so we can get the equity and go pay for their college. And I'm like, well, you have a disability rating, right? And they're like, well, yeah. He's like, well, did you know that your kid can go to any California State University school for free? Christian literally sitting in front of me, their eyes welled up and they literally started crying right in front of me.
That is
They ended
crazy.
up not selling their house. And then now they ended up being able to keep their house, send their kids to college, and never have to come out of pocket. And they've become one of our biggest raving fans because it's about mission before commission. It's all about
Hmm.
taking care of the consumer before lining our pockets. And so I'm just a firm believer that because here's our motto: if you chase the money, you're never going to catch it. But if you're truly right about taking care of others in the right way,
Hmm.
the money will follow. And so the mission behind more is, I mean, our tagline is expect more from your agent, right? And that's because we want to level up the level of experience that they provide for them. And then, like I said, so if we can do that, then we're also have on our roadmap to do a lot of other things. Like, I don't want to get ahead of
Okay.
myself. We're planning to be the one-stop shop for all relocation for service members. But again, we just launched, so we're still in the infancy stages of growth, but it's so exciting what our future looks like,
Yeah, that is awesome.
and so
That
that's
that
really
is
where we're
really
looking to
cool.
go.
Yeah, so what steps are you taking to get there, right? I mean that's a great goal. What's the timeline for growth? And I know you said 3 to 5 years. What
Mhm.
steps are we taking to get there, and how are we kind of leveraging, you know, technology and everything that's at our disposal
Sure.
to grow in that, in that amount?
Well, I'm a big believer in organic growth. So, yeah, although we might have some advertisements for a proof of concept, but I'm really a big believer that if you provide such an incredible service, that the clients will become your biggest billboard. Let me just use an example, right? I noticed the car behind you, right, and your marketing plan. You know Tesla, all right? Tesla, when was the last time if you turn on the TV now, about one out of every five advertisement is what industry?
Uh, I honestly don't watch much TV, so I'm a bad person to ask that.
So let's just say, I'll just tell you, it's automobiles, whether
Okay,
it's Ford or Chevy or Ram or any of
sure.
the automobile. Now, tell me the last time you even heard or saw a Tesla commercial.
Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe a Super Bowl or something like that.
No, never. They do not put advertising on television or anything like that. Why? Because they created such an incredible product that the consumer became their biggest advocate. I have one. I sit there and tell people about it all the time because it's
Hmm.
such an incredible product. So I'm modeling more behind that same model that we create such an incredible service and an experience for our service members that they will never go anywhere else and they will become our own walking, talking billboard.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that.
So I mean,
So,
and so it's that's what's so exciting about this. And like I said, the book was simply is simply a tool, and that's why it's called Military Money and More,
hmm
because our concept is, there's a lot of people in my industry that will do all these things to teach them, hey, you should come learn about your VA home loan benefit. But remember when I told you only 12% have ever used their VA home loan benefit? Did you know
hmm
only about 30% even know that's a benefit they can use of the 20 million service members? So my goal is to take that 12% and make it 100%. And
hmm
so I believe in so if you're only focused on the here and now, oh, let me give you some financial aid or let me give you something now. Well, why don't we focus more on the disease and not the symptom? And I believe the disease is financial literacy. So if we can solve that, then boom. As I mentioned before we got on this podcast, I'm a big believer that if you fought for our country, damn it, you deserve to own a piece of it. And that's our mission at War.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. I love to hear that. And that's really awesome too, that how you're doing that with your fans, your raving fans. You're serving first, right? I mean, that's biblical, right? Um, so I guess over the next 6 to 12 months, again, there's been so many changes in the market, right? Regardless of which market it is, with technology, with AI,
Hmm.
with marketing even, and especially because you are in that growth phase.
Hmm.
What's your plan for growth, for getting those raving fans, right? For getting in front of all those people? And I know you have the book also, which is a great tool. What's the plan over the next 6 to 12 months, and what are maybe some bottlenecks or challenges that you're facing
Sure.
and kind of, breaking through?
Well, I think the big one is, in marketing, as you know, that's obviously your specialty is lead magnets, right? And in the lead magnet world, I believe in providing a value that's going to attract people that's going to be free to the consumer. Because you got to think, our service is free to the consumer, right? It doesn't cost them a dime to use our services that they wouldn't already do outside. In other words, it doesn't cost them anything extra. Whether you're hiring a real estate agent to sell your home or you're using as a buyer's agent, it's going to be the same commission whether you're using some agent that has no experience with service members or you're using one of our more certified agents that does. I say all that because for example, have developed a very robust military homeowners guide that is very specific to that, and we're offer that for free, right? And it literally guides them through the process. We also do free webinars that service members can come and to attend, and where we're providing value for free, right? Because I believe that education should not cost the consumer, right? We're in an age right now, whether you're a college graduate or not, in today's world, you literally have every university's information at the palm of your hand. But the problem is most people don't know how to access it or actually organize it. And so our job at More is to organize it. So that is what our goal is right now is education, education, education. That's the reason why I'm on all these podcasts right now. I am literally going door to door. I don't care if I have a service member, one person shows up to one of my things. I will pour everything I have into them because I will make them a raving fan. And so it's going to be organic growth. We're not trying to like dump thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars into a big marketing campaign. We just believe that if we do the right thing, it will grow organically. And so far, for the record, we've only launched as of about a month ago, and we already have 75 over 75 agents around the country that cover over 110 military installations around the country, and we've only been open for less than a month.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So, and we're growing every day because people are just capturing onto it. And it's because we're also staying, front of mind with all things that are service member related, right?
Hmm.
Or even real estate related, but we're going to direct focus on educating the consumer. Let's use an example. Talk about real estate news. Can we talk about some modern news? Because you're right, the market is always changing, right? So just today, it was announced that President Trump, like him or not, this is not about politics, like him or not, he has ordered his companies, his representatives, to buy over $200 billion worth of bonds. Why do you care? Well, people don't realize that the way the interest rates work, and so many people have been sitting on the sidelines right now in the real estate world, and a lot of them are been like a little pent up, right? What if you're having babies and now you're in a two-bedroom condo and now you have four babies, you're bursting the seas, you got to go, but you couldn't afford it because interest rates were high. Well, stand by because of that order and what he's trying to do to lower interest rates, we're seeing that the market's already responding. Interest rates going to start dropping. And when they do, stand by. There's been so much pent up demand. It's going to be like the Hunger Games, where all these buyers are going to come off the sidelines, and we're in for another huge real estate boom.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned that you're all about education, and I know when we first got on the phone call, you were filming content. So tell
Mhm.
us where can people find you and how can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So super easy. I have a couple different ways. First is my personal brand. So not only do I educate, I do public speaking. Again, my book, that's at very simple, traviswinfield.com, right? And then once you're there, you'll actually be able to see my other endeavors. I have a local real estate company here in San Diego, and then I have the national company. So the local company is called the Winfield Group. The national company is called, of course, More or Military Operated Real Estate. Our main company's website is literally militaryoperated.realestate.com. And we're a one-stop shop. You'll be able to find an agent in your locale that has been trained to our standards, who's going to provide you not just good service, but wow service.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Anything particular you'd like to leave the audience with before we end the show?
I would just say this, never stop being a student. I'm 52 years old now, and every day I'm still opening myself up to learn more because the minute you stop learning is the minute you start dying. And so I'm a big believer that it just learn, learn, learn. That's the reason why I'm pouring into the community as much as I can. And the only stupid question is the one you don't ask.
That's awesome. I love to hear it, Travis. And that's all we have for today. So unless you have anything, we're
No,
signing off
Christian,
here.
thanks for having me, man. I love it. Keep kicking ass, man, and always look forward to helping out any way I can.
You got it. Talk soon.